Yeah, there we go. Now I can see what I'm doing. So I just wanted to show you. My company Turbine, which makes Lord of the Rings Online, and Turbine was recently bought out by Warner Brothers for $160 million. How crazy is that? So I'm a Sloaney. I got my MBA here, also undergraduate. I played the MIT Beaver. And I know the people who do roof and tunnel hacking, so I'm MIT through and through, just like you guys. And tonight, I want to tell you the actual secret to my success. This is a phrase that you've heard before, and it usually ends up with some kind of vague generality that's of no use. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the actual secret to my actual success. I will be specific, and when I give it to you, it'll be passed along in a way that you can actually make use of. So that's all going to happen in the next 30 to 40 minutes. And I've got handouts here, so please don't type or take notes. You've got notes right here. Oh, before I begin, let me say that when you're lost in the world of entrepreneurship, a lot of people give you advice, like investors, who may have their own goals, their own agenda. But a really good source of advice is a law firm, because your law firm works for you, and unlike your mom and your friends, they have experience and they have a network. I just thought I'd stick that in. So thanks again to our sponsors. So here is part of the secret. We're getting to the secret. This is you. This is the most androgynous male-female photo I can find. This is you with success. Yeah, this is also androgynous. If you Google the word androgynous, you'll find these photos. Now, in between you and success, men and women are very important people. If you're starting a company, you're a very important person, maybe a team member, or maybe an investor. If you want to get a book published, the very important person is your literary agent or your book publisher. But no one person is an island. You have to somehow leverage important, powerful people. The problem with powerful people is that they are pretty busy. So how do you get their attention? That is the secret. Now, of course, the elevator pitch is part of that. And let me just stop to explain what that is in case that's not clear. An elevator pitch is a 30-second summary of what your company does. And it's not really meant to convey everything, because you can't do that in 30 seconds. It's really meant to simply hook people in. So you're getting someone to say, wow, tell me more. That's the elevator pitch. And the joke is that it's so short that you can deliver it while you're on the elevator with a venture capitalist who can't get away. So that's how that works. So, are you ready to hear the secret? Sure. Yeah, I don't think you're ready yet. We're going to work on that. So here's a part of the secret. Here's a hint. This is me in the same room with Jeff Taylor, who is the founder and first CEO of Monster.com, the big resume website. Monster.com earns $1 billion a year, and they employ 4,000 people. And this is me at the MIT Venture Capital Conference in 2007. So I'm in a room of about 350 of the world's smartest people. But somehow it's me getting a pat in the back from Jeff Taylor. How did this happen? I'm going to show you a movie. And by the way, this is not me bragging. This is going to be all of you in 30 minutes.
Cost me money. And so I'm going to give away $40 for the person here in the room that wants this $40 the most. seen the first effort. Typically the first effort in a technology push is about like that, right? Who really does want this $40? Can anybody out there say that they want it more than these guys just did?
I want it.
I'm going to give $40 to anybody here right now. Just make some noise, do something. You got to make yourself stand out, right? Okay. So you not only planned questions for every single seminar, but you also came and got the money. That's awesome.
And then you go on to spend about 30 seconds or 60 seconds talking about me as an example of the ultimate entrepreneur. So how did I do that? And again, this is not about me. This is going to be you in 30 minutes. So bear with me, okay? So most people in the audience are thinking something like, this guy is speaking. This is fun. Or they're thinking, I want the $40. Or maybe they're just being quiet listening. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm not thinking that. What I'm thinking this whole time is, how can I get noticed? I want this guy to spot me in the audience, so later if I send him an email, he'll actually bother to read it. Can I ask a smart question? Can I do something smart? And because my mind is kind of going along this track of, is he going to ask this for a question? Am I going to be able to get up on stage? I'm a few seconds ahead of everyone else in the room. In fact, you don't see it on the video, but about 10 seconds behind me, there's somebody else who's walking up and trying to get the money as well. So I'm only about 10 seconds ahead of whoever that person was. And it's a little bit like Star Wars: Phantom Menace. And again, this is not me, this is all of you. So Qui-Gon says he can see things before they happen. That's why he appears to have such fast reflexes. Now, did I have faster reflexes than anybody else? No. It's just I was thinking a few steps ahead in terms of getting noticed. And I often do this at conferences. If you want to get noticed at a conference, find the VIP you want to meet. Go to their panel, ask a really smart question, and then approach afterwards. And the only real reason for the approach is to give your 30-second pitch. And the reason for that is that when you send an email or make a phone call, they'll remember you and they'll bother to reply. So this is part of the secret. I promised that we're getting to the secret. So, are you ready now to hear the secret?
Yeah.
I don't think you're ready yet. Are you ready now to hear the secret?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Here's the secret. The secret is whack-ass stunts. In between you and the VIPs is doing something wacky to get noticed. Here's an example of a whack-ass stunt. I think this is in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I get those cities confused because I'm a Yankee. So here's a guy handing out resumes on the freeway. Now, a lot of people who may be Mr. Grumpy may not like this guy. But to most, free thinkers, this is creative, it's outgoing. This guy got on CNN for doing this. Not bad. And he got a job, too. So I think that equals success, even if maybe he's a failure with Mr. Grumpy or Ms. Grumpy. This is not really a whack-ass stunt. You know why? Because it's fun, but it doesn't help anyone. There's no line of a resume, I did this. There's no charity. Why did someone put like a charity website here, to help some cause, right? So this is whack-ass, and I guess it's also a stunt, but it's not the kind of whack-ass stunt that gets you noticed by VIPs. So what I'm going to do, because this whack-ass stunt concept is unusual, and it's difficult to describe, I'm going to tell you a story from start to ending in just 15 minutes for how I went from nothing to a big book deal, like I talked to your book deal, through a series of about 10 whack-ass stunts. So, here we go. First of all, I'm sitting around home, doing nothing, picking my nose, and I say to myself, I want to give some advice. I have some philosophy about life. I want to give some advice about life, but I'm not sure how to do it, so I build a garden. In my backyard, I build this shed with a upright cylinder, this wheel, and on the wheel are hung all these colored cards. The idea is that the public can enter my garden, take a card, write a question about life, and the question is something like, how can I get kids at school to stop teasing me? Or, how can I tell my mother I forgive her without using those words? I turn the cards over, I write answers. It's like an advice column. And some of the answers get put up on the wheel, some of them get put up on a website. So I do this just in my backyard for almost a year. And got into the Boston Globe. So I got some recognition, ended up getting permission from the city of Cambridge to put the wheel into Harvard Square, which is the most highly trafficked pedestrian area in Cambridge, if not, one of the biggest ones in the whole area. So in 2009, I put a new version of the wheel, all self-funded, unfortunately. I should have known Steve back then. All self-funded into Harvard Square, and that year it went to festivals, got back in the Boston Globe, and I collected over 12,000 questions, all handwritten, and I responded to most of them, which set a world record. Now, this looks impressive until you realize that anybody who's got a little too much time on their hands could have done this, right? So I don't want you to think, oh, this guy John. I want you to think, this is going to be me. Hopefully not competing directly with me, but something else is going to be you, okay? Now, as part of this whole thing where I set a record and I get 12,000 people to respond, I wanted to write a book. And as you may know, it works like the movie business. If you're a movie wannabe or you're an author wannabe, you've got to find an agent. And that person connects you to a publisher. So my next goal was to find an agent. And what I thought I would do is go to a conference in Boston called Muse and the Marketplace. This is a literary event where agents and authors get together to meet and mingle and maybe learn something, and the agents make money by giving panel talks. Well, I had a whack-ass stunned idea. And the idea was to go to the conference organizers and say, you know what? I'm an artist, and I have this installation that will bring happiness to your conference. I should bring the installation and install it in the breakfast room. What do you think? And they said yes. So if you're just any old author, you're like, oh, please, Mr. Agent, Ms. Agent, would you please take on my book? They would probably blow you off, right? But with the wheel, I thought maybe I could just sort of show them what it was that I'm doing directly. So unfortunately at breakfast, didn't get a whole lot of attention because the room was big and it was kind of off in the corner, so I went to a panel. Did the same thing, asked a smart question, got up at the end, and I met this guy named Mitchell who seemed pretty cool, met a bunch of other agents too, and then lunch in the same ballroom. Now at lunch, I walk over to Mitchell, just politely. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I was the guy at that panel. See that? That's my art project. Can you maybe come over? And he's like, yeah, I'll come over when I'm done talking when lunch is over. And I'm like, great. Back to the wheel. And of course, he doesn't come over. That's okay. Persistent minds. So because he didn't come over, I talked to the conference organizers and got permission to bring the wheel from the ballroom to the cocktail room. So I actually physically carried this thing through the hallways and set it up in the cocktail room. And guess what? A bunch of agents, including Mitchell, was there. And this time I was able to say, look, just 20 feet away. That's the wheel. Can I show you? And he kind of had a good humor about it and allowed me to verbally entice him over to the corner where I showed him the installation, told him about the book, and also, of course, because it's basically a demo, it allowed him to see people interacting with it. And of course, they said good things. So I got Mitchell's attention. I wasn't too savvy about agents, though, so I went back and did a bunch of research. I ended up researching 250 different literary agents. They're all in big databases. It's not that hard to find them. And I then made a spreadsheet where I sorted them based on what genres they were in. So if they did like 5 out of 12 genres, were they my 5 genres, or were they someone else's genres? And it turned out that Mitchell actually was a pretty good choice. Came from a world-class agency, had plenty of clients, kind of had this sort of impish, humorous nature to him, as you can sense about me as well, and plus I met him. So I decided, unfortunately, he would not return my phone calls. That doesn't mean that he was saying no. It might just mean that he was busy, and I was not yet standing out adequately. It turns out there's no real blacklist for being politely persistent. If they say no and you continue to be a pain, then there might be a blacklist. But as long as they haven't said no yet, sure, every 3 or 4 days, give them a call. I think that's fine. So I ended up going to a second book conference called Book Expo America, the largest literary conference in the world in New York City. And again, I called up the organizers and said, you know what, I'm an artist, and I'm a blogger, so I'm also press. So you should give me a press pass and allow me to bring my wheel to your conference, as I just did. And the just did was vital. I had done it once already. So that proved that I should be able to do it again. And they said yes. Now at this point, I had so little money. I'm not impoverished, but the money that I got from Turbine, I put into my current company. So I prefer to call myself fully invested. It's a great term, work with that. So actually, this is June, a very hot month, and I sold off my air conditioner so I could buy tickets, and I brought the wheel in the cargo bay of a bus to New York City. And because the conference organizer had this really plum spot right at the front of the conference, but it was so expensive that nobody wanted to buy it, so they gave it to me. So there are about 4 front doors to this big conference expo center. But if you walk in the correct door, my installation is the first thing you see. So here I am talking to people all day, and I learned something. What I learned is that VIPs like to talk to each other. It's unfortunate, but they don't see each other that often. So if you go to a conference, often they're kind of hobnobbing with one another, or they're having scheduled meetings with people that are not you. So a lot of the first day of this conference, I spent meeting really interesting people who could not help me. And that was frustrating, but I had done some homework. In advance, I made a map of the show floor. See how confusing it might be to go to every single booth? That would take it all week, and the conference was only 2 days. So in advance, I made a map of the show floor. I used this map, and I colored in the publishers I wanted to go see. And I went to go visit all those publishers. And a bunch of them said, sure, go ahead and send me your proposal. And that's actually progress, because the other responses, we never heard of you. I also want to go to the 3rd floor, the magical 3rd floor where all the agents had tables. But when I went up there, I discovered it was by appointment only. You couldn't just walk in and talk to the agents. I was destitute. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I had no money. I was eating from the free food in the press room. I had met lots of B-level players, but I really needed to talk to an agent, especially Mitchell. And at that point, the guy I was crashing with had mistaken my bag of toiletries and underwear for trash and had thrown it out. So I had to buy a new toothbrush, and I was wearing no underwear. So I'm at this conference, and I'm going kind of crazy. The conference ends around 6 o'clock, and about an hour later, I decide, you know what, I'm just going to go up there. I'm not going to try to get past the line. I'll just like wave to agents. I'm like, hello, come out and see me. You know, I'll do something. So out of sheer frustration, I go up there, and it turns out everyone's gone. Slackers. They're all out to dinner or whatever agents are doing after 5. So I have a brilliant idea. I go to the business center, and I start writing out letters to the agents. Because I know that if I call their home office, I mean, if they're ignoring me during regular business hours, they're not going to respond while they're at a conference, right? But the only way of getting a schedule is to get their permission. So I write out 12 letters, and I sneak up there. There's a guard right there, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going is a great phrase. Walk right by him, start putting some letters out, and then I walk right back out, and he's like, hey. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, you're at the conference, right? And I'm like, hey, kind of non-committally, and I'm out of there. So this is me putting out 12 letters, and the next day, one of these agents called me. In fact, out of this whole conference, I still had not met Mitchell, but I got about 10 editors who worked at real publishing firms to request my proposal, which is not bad, and I got 2 agents to eventually say yes. And that's all ammunition that, of course, I emailed to Mitchell, saying, you know what, you're the one that I love. But look at all the progress I've made. Look at all the friends I have, the people who love me. Mitchell, not returning phone calls. So I decided to go to New York City on sort of a phony premise that I wanted to visit one of the other agents, which is actually true, but they were actually out of town. So I called Mitchell and I say, hey, I'm coming to New York City. I thought I'd stop by your office. Now, I would never stop by and demand a meeting. That would be rude and inexcusable. But to stop by and say hello with no expectations, just to keep me top of mind, I think that's basically fair play, especially at this level of the game. The guy knows me, he's met me once, he's expressed interest, he hasn't said no. It's a risk, but I took it. So I'm on the bus, I'm going to New York City, this time I'm wearing underwear, and he calls me, and he says, yeah, you know what, John, I got your voicemail, they're coming today. I'm really not available, but I can meet you Tuesday. I can meet you Tuesday! Alright, so I got to meet this guy. Finally. Now, in preparation for this meeting, what an agent basically does is an agent convinces a publisher that what you have will sell. So, later. So, what is that? That's a marketing plan. Well, I've got an MBA, I've got friends who have MBAs, I'm going to build my own marketing plan and make it easy for Mitchell to say yes by doing his work for him. So I put together my proposal with a writing sample, put together a website for browsing the cards. I went to the library and studied competitive books, built a PowerPoint presentation with all kinds of photos and slides, and one more whack-ass stunt. I brought the wheel to the Cambridge River Festival. This just happened in June. At the River Festival, people are coming by, they're writing out cards, I'm talking to them, but also I have a video camera. And I make this.
We want the buck! Mitchell, I want this to go down. She's so cool. Mitchell, we want the buck! We want the buck!
So that got some attention for me. Back to New York City, got the meeting, and what he said was, what you put together is incredibly compelling. I have never seen anything like this in a book proposal before. Now at this point, he hadn't actually read the proposal, and he hadn't actually read the writing sample. He was responding to all the whack-ass stunts that I had done. And he told me, you know what, I really want to say yes, but I've got to read the writing sample first. A few hours later, he calls me and says, I can work with this. Which I guess is a compliment. Anyway, he said yes. So, I had the idea, put the expo, floor map, letters, agents, New York. I almost stopped by his office, movie, and that is how you use whack-ass stunts to get deals. Okay, so how does this apply to your target VIPs? One thing to think about is that, I only have about 10 minutes up, by the way, don't get bored out there. Find the right target VIP. Like for me, it was kind of cool that I met Jeff Taylor. I ended up spending his $40 on cookies for his secretary or his assistant. Because, see, if you buy someone flowers, they kind of sit there. If you buy someone cookies, she has to share them and tell them who they came from, to all of her friends who work there. I got a meeting with Jeff Taylor, but you know what? It turned out I didn't really have much use for him because I wasn't in his area. He was like a fun guy to meet, but the wrong VIP for me. So these days I try to target the VIPs who can actually help me. A good way to tell if a VIP can help you is to think in your head, what am I suggesting? You know, hello, Mr. and Ms. VIP, I'd like you to blank. If you can't fill in the blank, wrong VIP. So things that you can target, you can talk about their business, talk about their colleagues and friends, the charities they sponsor, all the things on this list. Steve, what's your favorite restaurant?
Mistral.
Mistral, great. So meet the owner of Mistral and get seated next to Steve. Let's say, for example, that you want to meet Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. Well, it turns out, do some research, that Brad Pitt is a spokesperson for a charitable organization that helps out with rebuilding homes in New Orleans. So maybe you've got some friend, a rich uncle who, I don't know, destroys companies and takes all their furniture and junk sells them. You convince your friend to donate the furniture as a tax write-off to Brad Pitt's charity. And as part of that, you get to meet people who are in the charity, and then they introduce you to Brad. I'm not sure how. This is your problem, not mine. But this is how you do it. Okay? You find things in common. If you ever meet Brad Pitt, what you don't want to do is say, "Oh, I love all your movies," because he's heard that before. It's boring. What you want to do is say, "I've heard that you're interested in this charity, and I've got a friend who works in New Orleans, and his charity is synergistic with yours and could help your charity. Let's talk." And then Brad's like, "Oh, really?" That's what you want to get. That's your elevator pitch. That's your goal. Here's one of my targets. This is Kevin Smith, a movie director and a #1 podcaster. When the book comes out, which I hope it will in 2011, I'll need publicity. So I'm already starting to think about targets for PR. And Kevin's a target. I'm going to get his attention by playing a prank. And I'm not going to tell you what the prank is, but if you want to email me, do so. Ira Glass runs This American Life, popular NPR show, top podcast. He's coming to lecture at Sanders Theater, Harvard, in February. And so I may be talking with the manager of Sanders Theater to try to work some kind of interview out, because I'm a blogger, therefore I'm a journalist, right? Also, I recently met this guy, Robert Krulwich, who's also working for NPR on the show. Krulwich does science reporting. Now, when you meet someone famous, you want to say something to impress them, and if you haven't got anything, you have to kind of use your homework to try to research what it is that's going to impress them. I knew that Robert Krulwich, being a science reporter, liked MIT. And I said, you know what, Krulwich, I have this friend named Jack who gives special tours on campus, and I could probably hook you up with that. And he was all over that. I already heard back from this guy twice. So it's possible that if Krulwich gets the tour from Jack, that the wheel might just show up as part of the tour. Or the wheel might show up at Sanders Theater with, of course, permission. So I'm gunning for you, Ira Glass. Here's an example of the pitch for the company that I'm currently running. And by the way, the best elevator to give a pitch in is a slow one. So, I can't help but notice that we've been trapped in a Chilean mine for 69 days, and while we were sitting in this elevator, I thought I'd tell you about my company. I started a company called Turbine that was acquired for a bunch of money, and my second company is creating an online events calendar that's 10 times larger than the Boston Globes. And we're going to monetize it by selling tickets for Ticketmaster and getting a kickback, but also charging promoters to list their events and featuring it with photos and boldface and so forth. And that's all going to come out in January. Right now I'm not raising money. I'd love to tell investors that, because it's the one situation where you've got an up on them. They have all the power in the relationship, except when you say, sorry, I'm not raising money right now. And they look really hurt. They're like, what? But of course, you are raising money because you're always raising money, because even if you're not raising money now, you're thinking about next year, right? So then you end it by saying, but next year, we're going to launch this thing, kick New England out of the park, and then raise money to go nationwide. So right now, I'm looking just for teammates, but we'll talk. We'll talk. This is pretty much the end of the whack-ass stunts, but I want to touch on just a few things that Steve didn't mention in his half of the talk. If you look at ads in the subway, TV ads, magazine ads, these are all really great training for learning how to simplify your pitch. What is a TV ad but a 30-second elevator pitch? Just like you can get a fashion sense by just being aware of fashion. Did you know that if you're simply alert to fashion, 6 months later you are a fashion expert? Crazy. Same thing with ads and pitches. Number two, don't be on the railroad tracks. If you've got a pitch in your head, but you've memorized every word, trust me, it will come out sounding robotic. So what you want to do instead is have some talking points, but don't verbatim memorize them. Kind of speak with the person you're addressing, not at them. I would take technology out of the presentation entirely, except to say it's remarkable. We have a remarkable technology that, and then get right into the benefits. And for a startup company, just as you said, Steve, it should be at least 10 times faster, cheaper, better. It should be not just a little bit better. And here are 3 good ways of describing your company. How does the money flow? A lot of entrepreneurs, when they're giving a 5-minute pitch, tend to digress. But if you digress, it makes what you're saying harder to understand. So a good way of not digressing is just to describe the money. A user sits down, they go to MTV, and as part of MTV, they see our events calendar. They buy a ticket from Ticketmaster, they click and they buy the ticket, and then Ticketmaster gives us a kickback, and that's how we make money. So that's an example of a story. And stories are good in pitches because stories are easy to understand. So I do have some handouts that we're going to give out right now. Just the hands are on if you don't mind, guys. Just pass it back. As part of the next section, Steve and I want to actually take some of your pitches. So be thinking about this. And we'll actually give you feedback on your pitches now, tonight, in preparation, of course, for the contest. But before we do that, I want to bring you all in on a mantra that's going to help to give you confidence. So I'm just going to end with this last slide. Could I ask everyone to please rise to their feet? You guys can see me. Okay, so repeat after me. Somebody has to be the best.
Somebody has to be the best.
It might as well be me.
It might as well be me.
So get out there and do it.
So get out there and do it.
And today I baked some cookies just for you guys. So thanks for having me here tonight. That's it. Now, who has a Jedi mind trick? Who's thinking 5 seconds ahead and has their pitch ready to go? Why aren't you already up here?